All right, well, welcome back to our Wednesday night series. We're talking tonight in the third installment of our Home Again series about the prodigal son. Tonight we're going to talk more, I think, about the older son and how he feels, his reaction to staying behind. I'm curious, what was your first job? I want to hear about first jobs and make it something interesting. Luke, what was your first job?
My first job was working for my father. I would deliver and set up bounce houses all over the greater Walker County area.
Okay, and you got paid how much for that?
Starting off $7.50 and eventually worked my way up to $8.
Wow.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Did you claim that on your taxes?
I still don't.
Okay, you might not want to have. What about you, Leah? First job?
I worked at Chili's in the to-go department. I was a to-go girl. I don't remember what I made, but I want to say it was something around $6-something because
Nice.
it was a little bit better than a waitress, but not by much because you still got tips.
What'd you hate about it? Chili's.
I hated smelling like food.
Yeah.
It was bad. It got into your pores.
Were
Really
people rude
disgusting.
to you?
You know, yes, but not as rude as they would have been if I was
Messing up their food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it did happen, but not.
My first job was mowing lawns, and I made $10 a yard.
Woohoo!
And I would only go out and find a yard to mow, if I had a date first. Because
A reason to
if
do it.
not, I didn't need money. I didn't want to spend money on anything. And so that was literally my job. And if the girl said no, then I wasn't mowing grass. I love that because I had freedom and I liked being outside, and but it was hot and sweaty. And I had one guy, old man, who was very particular about his yard. And I'm like, for $10, buddy, you don't get to be particular. But I want to talk about earning. Once you started making your own money, did it change how you spent your money?
Yes.
What was the difference, Leah?
Well, once it's yours and you know the work that you put in to make that money,
Right.
you are much more careful in spending it.
Careful how you spend.
Yes.
What about you, Luke?
See, I feel like I was the opposite. I feel like once I got money, it was just a
Definitely at first.
Yeah.
magical time of life when I never had to ask my parents, can I
Yes.
have
Yes.
this? It was, I had the money, I'm buying.
There's a freedom to earning.
Yes.
Because it's yours, you have your own free agency. Now I can go and buy that CD, CDs, and you can't tell me no, even though you think it's frivolous, because this is the Beastie Boys, and I have a right to party.
That's right.
And so, actually, it was a cassette. It was a Beastie Boys License to Ill cassette that I paid for with my own money, and so, yeah.
It's very special.
But there's a freedom that comes with earning. But we're going to talk about tonight. We want you to watch this, especially about the older son, the one who stays behind, and his reaction to the father. How he feels like, I think he needs to earn his place. He needs to earn his love, and even the prodigal son who comes back. He's looking for a place again in his father's home. And so think about earning and think about those jobs that you hated doing. And we're going to talk about earning love. So let's watch this.
Hey, I'm gonna go into the shop for a little bit.
What for?
Just want to work on a few things.
You can wait till morning. Stay and have dinner.
No, I know. I just want to make sure we don't get behind.
Just stay. It's gonna be fine.
I know. I just want to make sure we stay on budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I just heard.
I know I shouldn't be here. I know. I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't be here. I've only caused you two trouble. Won't stay long, just
Lucas!
long enough to...
Lucas! Lucas, wait! Lucas, wait!
long enough to get things sorted out. Look, you don't have to talk to me or see me. I'll stay out of the way, and then I'll be gone. No.
You're home. We need to call everyone. The family, your friends, they're all gonna want to see you.
No, Dad, I just need a week or even a couple days just to get cleaned up and make enough to where...
No, no. Just come home.
All right, so of tonight's installment, who do you identify most with? Father, older son, younger son? What do you think?
I mean, I would definitely still say the older son at this point.
Yeah.
I think that part of him driving past his brother and seeing him and just that look on his face of, you deserve everything that
Right.
came to you. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a way in the church where it's like if we've been here the whole time and other people have wandered away, we're kind of like, well, hey, we were here the whole time. There's a sense of maybe self-righteousness, or like or God loves us a little bit more because we didn't wander. What about you, Leah? Who do you identify with?
Okay, honestly, at different moments of this particular video, I put myself in the shoes of each person.
Yeah.
Because I've been all three of those people. And it may be because of the particular situation in life I am right now, I found myself relating more towards the father.
Sure.
The minute he saw his son, it didn't matter what happened. It didn't matter the words the disrespect that he had shown him. He was there. And that's all that it mattered. That's all that mattered. So right now, that's who I identify with most. Because no matter what happens, if any of my children came home after being gone, I would be ecstatic.
So there's this painting by Rembrandt, and it's one of the last paintings that Rembrandt ever did. It was the painting of the prodigal son returning. And I'm hoping we can put this up on the screen. Luke, can we put this on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
There it is. Now, I want you to notice a couple things about who's around, who's looking on, and only if you really lighten up the painting like we did in this picture can you see the older son looking on, and you can kind of see you can see a lot of things. Rembrandt does a beautiful job of capturing this, but you see him with his ear against his father's chest, and so there's one of my favorite writers, a guy by the name of Henri Nouwen, who writes about this painting. And he says, Rembrandt is as much the elder son of the parable as he is the younger. When during the last years of his life he painted both sons in Return of the Prodigal Son, he had lived a life in which neither the lostness of the younger son nor the lostness of the elder son was alien to him. Both needed healing and forgiveness. Both needed to come home. Both needed the embrace of a forgiving father. But from the story itself, as well from Rembrandt's painting, it's clear that the hardest conversion to go through is the conversion of the one who stayed home. So let's talk a minute about this older son. What you mentioned, Luke, that scene of him driving by. What did you get from that? What did you pick up from that? Because there's no dialogue. We don't get an inner voice. What's the older son thinking there?
I think it's exactly what I said. I think it's that you deserved this. Like, I'm not going to help you. I'm not checking in on you. You did this to yourself, so now you're having to suffer that consequence.
Right.
So it's maybe even like a hard love kind of thing. Like, if you're going to figure it out, you're going to figure it out on your own.
If any love at all.
Right. I think there's a lot of spite in it too.
A lot of anger.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that comes from a couple of different places. One, I didn't mess up, so you need to get yourself together. But I don't know. The earlier scene with the older son and the father makes me see that the older son is feeling the weight of what?
Responsibility.
Yeah, I need to be the one who doesn't go off to Vegas, and I need to be the one who keeps it all together.
Right.
And so he's indignant to the young son because he's like, you're just, spitting in the face of our father who's loved you and given you everything. And I think if we're not careful, that feeling can creep in to how we treat people who are lost, who are away from God. That we can think, well, you're a horrible sinner, and we put a label on him. And yet the father's going, no, we need to call everybody. We need to. So I want to talk about earning and receiving love. When I'm talking about for a minute, or think about for a minute, the biggest gift you ever received. I have to think about my first car. It was a pretty big gift. I think about people that helped us finance our medical problems. Like, we had needed a lot of money, and some people just gave. And it was hard to receive that. It was hard for me to receive that. And yet at the same time, it was so big, there was no other way. Like, there was nothing else that I could do, right? And so there was a humility in having to receive it. But I never then turned around and said, look at this car, which I provided, or look at this medical treatment, which, because people love me so much. There's this idea of when we receive, we then can't take the credit for it, right?
Right.
So why then would we want to earn rather than receive? The older son would rather earn than receive. What do you think? What do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's that what we were talking about earlier with our spending, it's that sense of pride that comes from I've earned it, rather than the sense of, I don't know, weakness from this was given to me, or I needed it and I couldn't get it myself.
There's a humbling that has to happen. You have to say, without this, I've got I've got no hope. Right. So there's a sense of a pride issue. I think there's a control issue. Mm-hmm. If I can earn it, then if I know, as I always say, I just want to know the rules of the game, because I'll follow the rules, but I'm going to follow the rules to the letter. And if it doesn't say I can't do this, then I'm going to do that. And so there's an issue here of control. I think in some ways it's not always a bad motivation that's coming from that. So often we want to say, well, you can't earn God's love. I get it though, right? Because we're wanting to please God, and we're kind of hardwired for that. That I'll tell my sons, I'm proud of you, or you did a great job because you did this. And if we're not careful, we set up this idea of I only love you when you perform.
Right.
And if you're not performing, then I don't love you. The young son, the prodigal son, he rehearses his speech. He's talking in the mirror and he's thinking what? What is he thinking his dad's going to do when he comes home? Why is he rehearsing this speech?
He's afraid. He's embarrassed. He thinks his father's going to be angry, turn him away.
Because I think he's thinking, I would do that.
Right.
And I don't have the capacity. What else is he thinking here, Luke?
Leah pointed out earlier when we were watching it again, in his speech, he goes, I did it to you both, right? So he's not only thinking about the father, but he's actually thinking about, well, what have I now done to my brother? Because that brother's thinking, I had to pick up the slack.
Right.
I had to be better because you were worse. And I think that we often have that mentality. We look at the news, we look at everything and go, all these hypocritical people out there. Now I have to become the better Christian to pick up the slack of the world.
Yeah.
And so we throw that upon
like somehow God is going to look down and go, you people are really evil, but there's Luke.
Right.
And he's going to church and he's tithing,
And that's something we talked about week 1 about, instead of seeking forgiveness, we just seek to do better, thinking that that'll cancel that out.
Right.
And so going along with that, I think that the brother coming home is going to throw the second brother for a loop, because he's expecting, in that first scene when he broke off and they had that big fight, I think that that's what he's expecting again, and this younger brother's just going to come back and say, yeah, I messed up.
What about the dad's reaction? I love, it's always been hard for me to imagine what that looks like in an old setting, but here's the new modern day dad running towards his kid. Like, what do you see in the father's reaction?
Love.
Yeah. That was that hope that it just never give up, that one day I'm going to look out the front door and I'm going to see him.
He never gives up. He's looking at his picture, trying to think of some of the different things that they let us see. Yeah. I don't read any anger. I don't read any. What was the worst thing your parents ever said to you? I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Right. He
didn't need to go, now here's 3 points, or if you're coming back, there's going to be some rules into this household. It is just an unequivocal, I'm going to love. So in Ephesians 5, verse 1, it says, follow God's example. So in the same way God did it, you do it. Therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk, camp out right there. Follow God's example. So look at how he loved us as dearly loved children, as people that God has run toward. And then it says, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us. So there's the magnitude, there's the example, and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God. There's other translations that read it as live a life of love, walk in this way. And if we look at Jesus's life, a life that included loving prostitutes and sinners and people with leprosy, and he loves everybody, then that's the kind of pattern. That's what we're supposed to look like. I'll give you one more verse, and I'll let everybody get a final word in here. Richard Foster. This isn't a verse; it's a quote. Richard Foster, wonderful writer. He wrote Celebration of Disciplines and a book on prayer. Wonderful book. But he says, Jesus rejoiced so fully in life that he was accused of being a wine bibber, that's a drunk, and a glutton, that's somebody who eats too much. Many of us lead such sour lives that we cannot possibly be accused of such things. And I love the idea of, like, wouldn't it be great if the thing that the people held against the church is they just have too much fun. Mm-hmm. They just smile all the time. They give way too much grace. Those people are just too nice. What else do you read? What else do you hear in tonight's lesson that you want to take with you?
Yeah, I think that a verse that was paired with this is from John 6. I'm going to throw that up. Boom, John 6, there it is. It says, "Then they asked him," talking to Jesus, "what must we do to do the works God requires?" Yes. And Jesus replies, "The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." And so me and Leah were talking about, if your pure motive of everything you do comes from the belief of Jesus, then what you do so much isn't what matters. It's the belief, the ideology, what is driving you to do those works. And so for all of these people have to look at the ideology. The younger son, he just wants to get away. Mm-hmm. So that's what drives his actions. Yeah. The younger son doesn't want to see his father hurt, so that drives his actions. And so if we look at the ideology behind our belief of why we are doing it, that's way more important than the stuff we're doing ourselves.
Leah, what about you? What's maybe a go and talk about? What could we discuss as families? What do we take from this? I'm thinking about my own sons, and I'm like, so it's not up to you what punishment the other one gets.
No.
It's not up to you what other reward, and is it even?
No.
What else could we say? How do we apply this as a family?
I think you talk about how in families, every family member is different. Every family member has different needs. Yeah. And in this particular family, the younger son had different needs than the older son. And in this particular situation, what he needed was to be welcomed home, no matter what he had done. And I think as a family, talk about how the love you have for your children and that your children have for you, even though they show it in very different ways, is the same. And it relates so well to the love that God has for us.
We were talking about this morning how Evelyn is a runner. If you just look away for a minute, she's on it. She's moving. And we expect that of kids, especially when their parents come in, dad comes home, they run towards them. I wonder if we could switch it up this week and let the parents be the ones who are running towards. I love that picture of the father running toward his kid. Imagine your kids coming home from school and mom and dad losing their mind. Yeah, we're so excited you're here. So try that. I don't know. But just keep that image of God running towards us and opening his arms with full and complete and unconditional love. God bless. Thanks for joining us.